Nobody wanted to stand near the glass. The viewing window was thick enough to stop a plasma round, but every cadet in the room had taken 3 steps back anyway. Behind that glass, something moved in the darkness. Danny Reeve stayed where he had grown up on a ranch in Montana, Earth. He had seen bulls charge through wooden fences. He had watched wolves circle his family's cattle. He had learned young that fear made animals more dangerous, not less. So he kept his hands relaxed at his sides and watched the shadows shift. The creature emerged slowly. 6 legs moved without sound. Black scales absorbed the light. Eyes like molten copper fixed on the crowd of cadets, and it opened its mouth to reveal rows of teeth designed for tearing flesh from bone, the Shadow Maw. The deadliest predator in Coalition space. Behind Danny, someone made a small sound of terror. The Valorian instructor, a tall insectoid named Paleth, stepped forward. "This is the restricted wildlife zone," Paleth said. "You will train here in your 3rd year. Some of you will face creatures like this one. She has killed 3 cadets in the past decade. She cannot be tamed. She cannot be reasoned with. She is death with scales." The Shadow Maw lunged at the glass. The impact shook the floor. Cadets screamed and fell over each other, trying to get away. Danny did not move. The creature pulled back from the glass and stared directly at him. For a long moment, human and predator looked at each other. Danny tilted his head slightly, watching the way the creature held itself. He had seen this posture before, not in an alien predator, but in a wounded horse his father had brought home years ago. This was not hunting behavior. This was warning behavior. The Shadow Maw was not trying to kill them. She was telling them to stay away from her territory. Cadet Reeves. Paleth's voice cut through Danny's thoughts. "Perhaps you did not hear me. Step back." "Yes, instructor." Danny moved away from the glass, but he kept watching the creature. She tracked his movement, copper eyes following him until he disappeared into the crowd. Later that night, Danny sat in his shared quarters with his 2 roommates. Grillo, a 4-armed Sindari with nervous energy, paced back and forth. Neith, a Peloran whose blue skin glowed softly in the dim light, studied a datapad. "That thing looked right at you," Grillo said. "Right at you? How are you not terrified?" Danny shrugged. "She was just protecting her space. Same as any animal." "That is not any animal," Neith said quietly. "Shadow Maws are apex predators from a death world. They hunt creatures twice their size. They have been known to ambush military patrols." "She," Danny corrected. "What? She? Not it. She is female. You can tell by the ridge pattern on her skull." Grillo stopped pacing. "You noticed that? While we were all running away, you noticed the ridge pattern on her skull?" Before Danny could answer, an alarm screamed through the station. Red lights flooded the corridor outside. A voice spoke over the intercom, calm but urgent. "Security breach in wildlife containment. All cadets shelter in place." Repeat. "Security breach in wildlife containment." Grillo's 4 hands trembled. No. "Which creature?" Neith asked, already knowing the answer. The intercom spoke again. "The Shadow Maw has escaped. Lethal force authorized." Chaos erupted in the dormitory wing. Cadets ran in every direction. Security teams pushed through the crowds, weapons drawn. Danny grabbed Grillo's arm and pulled him toward the emergency shelter at the end of the hall. They never made it. A wave of panicked cadets slammed into them. Danny lost his grip on Grillo. Bodies pushed him sideways into a dark maintenance corridor. By the time he got his balance back, he was alone. The lights had failed in this section. Danny pressed his back against the wall and listened. Footsteps echoed somewhere far away. Voices shouted orders. Then everything went quiet. Something breathed in the darkness ahead of him. Danny held perfectly still. His eyes adjusted slowly. He could see a shape now. Large, low to the ground. 6 legs. Copper eyes reflecting the faint emergency lighting. The Shadow Maw had found him. She moved closer. Danny could see something around her neck now. A collar. Sparks jumped from it every few seconds, and each time, the creature flinched in pain. A shock collar. It was malfunctioning, sending constant jolts through her body. She was not hunting. She was running. Running from the pain. Danny made a decision that should have killed him. He sat down on the cold floor and lowered his gaze. The shadow maw stopped. Her breathing was ragged. Another spar from the collar made her whole body shake. "Easy," Danny said softly. "Easy, girl. I'm not going to hurt you." She could end his life in half a second. Instead, she stepped closer. Her massive head lowered toward him, nostrils flaring as she took in his scent. Danny raised his hand slowly. His fingers found the collar. The shadow maw tensed, but did not attack. He felt the release mechanism, pressed it, and the collar fell away. The pain stopped. The creature let out a long breath. When the security team found them 2 minutes later, Danny was sitting with his back against the wall. The galaxy's deadliest predator lay beside him, her head resting near his knee. Nobody fired. Nobody moved. They just stared. Instructor Paleth pushed through the soldiers, his compound eyes fixed on Danny. "Cadet Reeves," he said slowly. "What have you done?" Danny looked up at his instructor, then back at the creature beside him. "I helped her," he said simply. "She was hurting. Now she is not." The shadow maw opened one copper eye and watched the crowd of aliens pointing weapons at her. She did not growl. She did not move. She just stayed where she was, next to the human who had taken away her pain. Everything was about to change. The holding cell was built for war criminals. Reinforced walls, energy barriers, armed guards at every corner. They put the shadow maw inside and Danny right next to her. Not as a prisoner. As a test point, 3 days had passed since the escape. Command wanted the creature dead. They had argued for hours behind closed doors while Danny waited outside, watching through a small window as the shadow maw paced her cage. She never stopped moving, never stopped searching for a way out. Then the door opened, and Instructor Paleth walked out. "You have been given one chance," Paleth said. His voice carried no emotion, but his compound eyes showed something Danny had not seen before. Curiosity. "Command does not believe the creature can be controlled. I do not believe it either. But the human ambassador spoke on your behalf." "What did they say?" "That humans have a history of bonding with predators. That your species once turned wolves into dogs through patience and trust." Paleth paused. "They also said that if anyone can do this, a human can." "Prove them right, Cadet Reeves. You have 30 days. Danny entered the holding area alone. The guards sealed the door behind him. Through the energy barrier, the shadow maw watched him approach. She remembered him. He could see it in the way her body relaxed slightly. The constant tension in her muscles eased just a little. "Hey there," Danny said quietly. "Remember me?" The creature made a low sound. Not a growl. Something softer. Danny sat down on the floor, just like he had in that dark corridor. He did not try to touch her. He did not try to command her. He just sat there, letting her get used to his presence. Hours passed. Danny talked to her sometimes. About his home on Earth. About the horses he had trained. About the wolf that used to watch his family's ranch from the hills. Never attacking, just watching. The shadow maw listened. At least, it seemed like she listened. On the 5th day, she lay down near the barrier. Not touching it. Just close. On the 10th day, she let Danny enter her section of the cell. On the 15th day, she ate from his hand. Danny named her Whiskey, after a horse his father had owned. That horse had been mean and wild, and everyone said she could never be broken. Danny's father had spent 3 months with her, patient and calm, until one day she followed him around the ranch like a giant dog. Whiskey the Shadow Maw was the same. She was not evil. She was not mindless. She was intelligent and afraid, and had learned to attack before she could be attacked. The shock collar had been on her for years. She had known nothing but pain from a species around her. Danny gave her something different. He gave her peace. Word spread through the academy. Cadets came to the viewing window to watch the humans sit with the monster. Some laughed. Some made bets on when the creature would finally kill him. Grillo and Neith came every day. "You are insane," Grillo said through the glass. "You know that, right?" "Completely insane." "Probably," Danny agreed. Whiskey was lying beside him, her massive head near his leg. He scratched behind one of her ears. She made a rumbling sound of contentment. Neith pressed his glowing hand against the glass. "The scientists want to study her. They say her brain activity has changed since you started working with her. She is calmer, more focused. She was always smart, Danny said. She just needed someone to treat her like she was smart. On the 20th day, Duro came. Duro was a Velikan. Tall, proud. His species had a long military history, and Duro never let anyone forget it. He had been a top combat student before Danny arrived. Now everyone talked about the human and his pet monster instead that he stood at the viewing window with 3 of his friends. Danny could hear them through the intercom. "Watch this," Duro said. He slammed his fist against the glass. "Hey, beast, look at me." Whiskey's head rose. Her copper eyes fixed on the Velikan. Duro bared his teeth. In Velikan culture, this was a challenge. A threat. "You are nothing. A stupid animal. I could kill you with my bare hands." Whiskey stood. Her scales shifted. The rumble in her throat was no longer contentment. Danny moved between them. "Duro, stop. Or what? Your pet will attack me? Through the barrier?" Duro laughed. "You have fooled everyone, human. But I see what you really are. A fraud. That creature will turn on you eventually. It is in her nature." "Her nature," Danny said calmly, "is to protect herself from threats. Right now, you are being a threat. So stop." Duro's eyes narrowed. He leaned closer to the glass. "I will prove you wrong, human. I will show everyone what that thing really is." He walked away. His friends followed. Laughing, Danny turned back to Whiskey. She was still tense, still watching the door where Duro had disappeared. He placed his hand on her neck, feeling the powerful muscles beneath the scales. "Easy, girl. He is gone." She looked at him. Those copper eyes held something now. Trust. Loyalty. Things the scientists said Shadowmaws could not feel. They were wrong. On the 30th day, Instructor Paleth returned with a group of high-ranking officers. They stood behind the barrier and watched Danny put Whiskey through her paces. She followed commands. She stayed calm when strangers approached. She demonstrated her hunting ability on a training dummy. When it was over, the officers spoke quietly among themselves. Then one of them, an elderly Paloran admiral, stepped forward. "Cadet Reeves, you have done what we believed impossible. But understanding commands in a controlled environment is not enough. We need to know if this bond will hold under pressure." "What do you mean?" "There will be a formal evaluation. Combat scenario. Stress tests. If you pass, the creature will be officially designated as a military asset. The first bonded predator in Coalition history." The Admiral paused. "If you fail, she will be terminated." Danny felt Whiskey press against his side. She could not understand the words, but she understood his emotions. She knew something was wrong that he placed his hand on her head. "We will not fail." The Admiral nodded slowly. "For both your sakes, I hope you are right." The evaluation was scheduled for 1 week later. Danny had 7 days to prepare Whiskey for the biggest test of their lives. He did not know that Duro was already planning to make sure they failed. 7 days felt like 7 hours. Danny trained with Whiskey from morning until night. They ran obstacle courses. They practiced attack commands. They worked on staying calm when loud noises exploded around them. Whiskey learned fast, faster than any animal Danny had ever worked with. But something was wrong. He could feel it. Duro watched them every day. The Velikan stood at the edge of the training ground with his arms crossed, studying every movement. He never said anything. He never had to. His presence alone was a promise. A threat that on the 4th day, Grillo came running into the training area. His 4 arms waved frantically. Danny, you need to hear this." Whiskey lifted her head, sensing the Sindari's fear. Danny placed a calming hand on her neck. "What is wrong?" Duro has been asking questions. About Shadowmaws. About what makes them aggressive. Grillo's voice dropped to a whisper. "He found something. A chemical compound. It drives Shadowmaws into a killing frenzy. They used it in the wars." Danny's blood went cold. "How do you know this?" One of his friends told another cadet. Word spread. Grillo grabbed Danny's arm with 2 of his hands. "He is going to use it during your evaluation. He wants Whiskey to attack someone. He wants her to prove that she cannot be trusted." Danny looked at Whiskey. She looked back at him, copper eyes calm and trusting. She had no idea what was coming. "I need proof," Danny said. "Without proof, nobody will believe me. There is no proof. He is too careful." Danny thought about this for a long moment. Then he shook his head. "Then we train harder. If he uses that compound, I need to be able to reach her. I need her to trust me more than her own instincts. Is that even possible? Danny did not answer. He was not sure. The next 3 days were brutal. Danny pushed himself and Whiskey to their limits. He introduced distractions, loud sounds, sudden movements, other cadets walking past. Each time, he worked on keeping her focus on him. His voice, his presence, his commands. By the 7th day, Whiskey could ignore almost anything if Danny told her to. Almost anything. The evaluation took place in the main training arena. Hundreds of seats surrounded a central floor where combat exercises were held. Every seat was filled. Officers from across the coalition had come to watch. Cadets pressed against the railings, trying to get a better view. Danny stood at the center of the arena with Whiskey at his side. She was calm. Her scales reflected the bright lights above. Her copper eyes scanned the crowd without aggression. Instructor Palitha's voice echoed through speakers. The evaluation will consist of 3 phases. Obedience. Threat response. Combat simulation. Cadet Reeves, are you ready? Ready, instructor. The first phase went perfectly. Danny gave commands. Whiskey followed them. Seat. Stay. Move. Stop. Attack the dummy. Release. The crowd murmured in amazement. This was not the mindless killer they had heard stories about. The second phase involved strangers approaching. Officers walked toward Whiskey one by one. She tensed but did not attack. Danny's voice kept her steady. Good girl. Easy. Stay. Then the third phase began. Combat dummies rose from the floor. Simulated enemies. Whiskey had destroyed dozens of them in training. This should have been easy. Danny gave the attack command. Whiskey lunged forward, tearing through the first dummy. Then the second. Then the third. That was when Danny smelled it, a sharp, bitter scent in the air. Chemical. Wrong. Whiskey stopped mid-attack. Her whole body went rigid. Her copper eyes changed. The calm, trust disappeared. Something primal took its place. She turned toward the crowd. The pheromone. Duro had released the pheromone. Whiskey. Danny's voice was steady despite the terror clawing at his chest. Whiskey, look at me. She did not look at him. Her muscles coiled. A sound rose from her throat. Not the soft rumble Danny knew. This was something else. A hunting call. A death promise. The crowd panicked. Officers reached for weapons. Cadets screamed and pushed toward the exits. Guards raised energy rifles. Nobody fire, Danny shouted. Nobody fire. Give me a chance. He walked toward Whiskey. Everyone screamed for him to stop. Instructor Palitha's voice boomed through the speakers, ordering him to get away. But Danny kept walking. Whiskey saw him approach. Her body turned toward him. The hunting sound grew louder. Every instinct in her brain was screaming at her to attack, to kill, to destroy. Whiskey. Danny's voice was soft now. Gentle. I know you can hear me in there. I know the real you is still fighting. She lunged. Danny did not move, did not flinch, did not run. Her teeth stopped inches from his throat. Her whole body shook with the effort of holding back. The chemical screamed at her to bite down. Her bond with Danny begged her to stop. That's my girl. Danny placed his hand on her snout. That's my girl. You're stronger than this. I know you are. Whiskey made a sound, a whimper. Her copper eyes flickered. The primal rage fought against something deeper. Something built over weeks of patience and trust. Trust won. She collapsed against Danny, pressing her massive body against his legs. She shook like a frightened animal. The chemical still burned in her system, but she refused to let it control her. Silence filled the arena. Then Instructor Palitha spoke. Find the source of that compound. Now. Guards searched the ventilation systems. It took them 10 minutes to find the device. It took them 5 more to trace it back to Duro. They dragged the Velikan into the arena in restraints. His proud face had gone pale. You could have killed everyone here, Palitha said. His voice was ice. You could have caused a massacre. Duro said nothing. Danny stood with Whiskey pressed against his side. The Shadow Maw was still shaking, but she was calm. She had fought her own nature for him. She had won. The elderly Peloran admiral stepped forward. He looked at Danny, then at Whiskey, then at Danny again. Cadet Reeves, you have proven something remarkable today. Not just that this creature can be controlled, but that her bond with you is stronger than chemical manipulation, stronger than instinct. He paused. The evaluation is a success. From this day forward, the Shadow Maw designated whiskey is officially a bonded military asset under your command. Danny felt whiskey rumble against him. He scratched behind her ears. Did you hear that, girl? We did it. She looked up at him with copper eyes, full of exhaustion and trust, and something that might have been love. They had passed the test. But Danny knew this was only the beginning. 2 weeks after the evaluation, Danny received orders he did not expect. He sat in the command briefing room with whiskey lying at his feet. Officers surrounded a holographic display showing a small planet on the edge of Coalition space. The world was gray and brown, covered in dense forests and rocky mountains. This is Mirren, said Admiral Torvin, the elderly Peloran who had approved whiskey's status. A frontier outpost monitors the region for hostile activity. 3 days ago, all communication stopped. The hologram shifted to show the outpost. A small structure built into a mountainside. Solar panels, communication towers, living quarters for 30 personnel. We sent a drone to investigate. Torvin continued. This is what it found. The image changed again. Danny felt his stomach drop. The outpost was destroyed. Walls torn open. Equipment scattered across the ground. Dark stains that could only be blood covered the rocks nearby. We believe everyone is dead, Torvin said. But we need confirmation. More importantly, we need to know what did this. You want us to go there? Danny said. It was not a question. You and your bonded asset. Yes. Along with a support team. Torvin looked at Whiskey. Her senses could prove invaluable. If whatever attacked the outpost is still there, she will know before any of our equipment can detect it. Danny looked down at Whiskey. She met his eyes calmly. She did not know what was being discussed, but she trusted him to make the right choice. When do we leave? The transport ship carried 10 soldiers. Danny knew 2 of them. Grillo had volunteered despite being terrified. Neith came because, as he said, someone needed to document what they found. Instructor Paleth led the team, his insectoid body covered in combat armor. The others were veterans. Professional soldiers who looked at Whiskey with a mix of fear and curiosity. None of them had worked with a bonded predator before. She will not attack anyone on the team, Danny assured them during the flight. She knows who is friendly. And if she decides we are not friendly, asked a scarred Velican soldier named Garrett, Danny shrugged. Then I suggest you start running. Nobody laughed. Danny had not expected them to. The transport landed 2 kilometers from the outpost. The team moved through the forest on foot, weapons ready. Whiskey walked beside Danny, her senses sweeping the environment. Her nostrils flared constantly, taking in scents. Her ears rotated toward every sound. Halfway to the outpost, she stopped. What is it, girl? Whiskey lowered her body. Her scales shifted to match the gray-brown colors around her. A warning rumble built in her throat. Something ahead, Danny said quietly. She smells something. Paleth raised a fist. The team froze. Can she tell what it is? Danny watched Whiskey carefully. Her body language spoke clearly to him after weeks of bonding. Multiple contacts. Small. Fussed. She does not recognize the scent. Could be survivors. No. Danny shook his head. She would not react like this to people. These are predators. The team advanced more slowly. They reached the outpost 20 minutes later. The IT was worse than the images showed. Bodies lay scattered among the wreckage. Most were too damaged to identify. Something had torn through this place with terrible efficiency. Grillo made a sound of distress. Neith's glowing skin had gone pale. Even the veteran soldiers looked shaken. Danny knelt beside one of the bodies. Deep wounds covered the torso. 3 parallel cuts like claws, but wrong somehow. Too precise. Too uniform. These were not made by any creature I know, he said. Whiskey growled. Her body tensed. Her copper eyes fixed on the darkness inside the ruined building. They are still here, Danny realized. The attack came from everywhere at once. Creatures poured out of the building, the rocks, the trees. They were small, about the size of dogs, with gray bodies and too many legs. their mouths open to reveal circular rows of teeth. "Open fire," Pallas shouted. The team formed a circle and began shooting. Energy bolts tore through the creatures, but more kept coming. Dozens, maybe hundreds. Whiskey did not wait for a command. She launched herself into the swarm with all the fury of an apex predator protecting her pack. Her claws shredded 3 creatures before they could react. Her teeth crushed another. She moved like liquid death through the horde. Danny fired his weapon beside the soldiers, dropping creatures that got too close. But there were too many. They were being overwhelmed. Then he saw Grillo fall point. One of the creatures had latched onto the Sindari's leg. Grillo screamed, trying to pull it off. More creatures turned toward him. Sensing weakness, Danny ran. He did not think. He just moved. He grabbed the creature on Grillo's leg and tore it away with his bare hands. Its teeth cut his arm as he threw it aside. Another creature leaped at his face. He caught it, felt its teeth sink into his palm, and slammed it against a rock. More creatures surrounded them. Danny stood over Grillo, bleeding from a dozen small wounds. This was how he would die, he realized, protecting his friend. Then Whiskey appeared. She had seen Danny fall. She had seen him bleeding. Something changed in her eyes. The controlled predator became something else entirely. Something ancient and unstoppable. She did not fight the creatures anymore. She destroyed them. Her body became a weapon of pure rage, tearing through everything that threatened her human. The swarm that had seemed endless moments ago now seemed pathetic against her fury. When the last creature fell, silence returned to the outpost. Danny lay on the ground, clutching his bleeding arm. Whiskey stood over him, her body positioned between him and any possible threat. She was wounded too. Cuts and bites covered her scales, but she refused to move from his side. "Danny." Grillo crawled toward him, eyes wide. "You saved me. You ran into those things for me." Danny managed a weak smile. "What are friends for?" Pallas approached slowly, careful not to startle Whiskey. "The creatures have retreated, but we found something in the basement. Survivors." Danny tried to sit up. Pain shot through his body. Whiskey made a concerned sound and pressed her snout against his shoulder. "How many survivors?" 7. "And they have information." Pallas's compound eyes gleamed with something dark. These creatures were not natural. Someone made them. Someone released them here as a test. Danny looked at the dead creatures scattered around them. Engineered weapons. Biological monsters created in a lab. Where's the person who made them? Still on the planet. The survivors nowhere. Danny forced himself to stand. Blood dripped from his wounds. Every part of him hurt. But he looked at Pallas with determination burning in his eyes. "Then we find them. And we stop them." Whiskey pressed against his side, rumbling her agreement. The hunt was not over yet. The survivors huddled in the basement like frightened animals. 7 scientists, covered in dirt and dry blood, stared at the rescue team with hollow eyes. They had hidden in darkness for 3 days, listening to their colleagues die above them. That a female Peloran named Dr. Scylla spoke for the group. Her voice trembled, but she forced the words out anyway. "His name is Carrick. He worked with us on biological research, terraforming, ecosystem adaptation." She paused, struggling with the memory. "We trusted him. We did not know what he was really doing." "What was he doing?" Pallas asked. "Creating weapons. Those creatures." Scylla's glowing skin flickered with distress. "He engineered them from native species, made them aggressive, made them breed fast, made them hungry for living flesh." Danny sat against the wall, letting Neith treat his wounds. Whiskey lay beside him, her copper eyes never leaving the basement entrance. She sensed more of those creatures out there, waiting. Why would he do this? Grillo asked. Money. Power. He planned to sell the creatures to the highest bidder. Weapons that could reproduce, spread, and destroy entire populations. Scylla's hands clenched. He released them here as a test. He wanted to see how effective they were against trained personnel. Where is he now? His ship is hidden in a valley 30 kilometers north. He was waiting for the test to finish before leaving with his data. Danny pushed himself to his feet. His wounds burned, but the medical patches were doing their job. He could move. He could fight. Then we stop him before he leaves. Paleth stepped forward. Cadet, you are injured. You should stay with the survivors. With respect, instructor, no. Danny looked at Whiskey. She and I are the best chance of finding him. Those creatures know her scent now. They fear her, and she can track anything. The Valorian considered this for a long moment. Then he nodded. Very well. We move in 1 hour. Everyone rest until then. Danny did not rest. He sat with Whiskey, checking her wounds, making sure she was ready for what came next. She had cuts and bites covering her body, but none were deep. She had almost healed fast. By morning, she would be at full strength. You fought hard for me, he told her quietly. You protected me when I fell. Whiskey rumbled and pressed her head against his chest. I will protect you too. Whatever we find out there, we face it together. She understood. Maybe not the words, but the meaning. The bond between them had grown beyond training and trust. It had become something deeper. Something unbreakable. 1 hour later, the team moved out. They left 3 soldiers with the survivors. The rest followed Danny and Whiskey through the dark forest toward the valley. The going was slow. More creatures lurked in the shadows. Whiskey sensed them and guided the team around the largest groups. Twice, they had a fight. Small packs of creatures that attacked without warning. Whiskey handled most of them while the team provided cover fire. Each battle was quick and brutal. By dawn, they reached the edge of the valley. Below them sat a small ship. Military grade, heavily modified. Equipment surrounded it. Cages, computers, breeding tanks filled with murky liquid, and standing beside the ship, a thin male Valorian in a white coat. Carrick. He was loading cases into the cargo hold, preparing to leave. We need to stop him before he reaches the ship's weapons systems, Paleth said. If he gets inside and powers up, he could destroy us from the air. I can get close, Danny said. Whiskey and I, we move quiet. We hit fast. Those creatures will be guarding him. I know. Danny looked at his team. Grillo, still shaking but refusing to stay behind. Neath, whose glowing skin had been dimmed to avoid detection. The veteran soldiers, grim and ready. Paleth, who had watched Danny grow from a strange cadet to something much more. Give us 5 minutes to get in position, then create a distraction. Paleth nodded. Good hunting, cadet. Danny and Whiskey moved down the valley wall. They stayed low, using rocks and trees as cover. Whiskey's scales shifted color, blending with the environment. Danny followed her lead, moving when she moved, stopping when she stopped. They were 50 meters from the ship when the distraction began. Plasma fire erupted from the ridge. Carrick shouted an alarm and ran toward his ship. Creatures poured out of the shadows, responding to their master's panic. But Danny was already moving. He sprinted toward the scientist. Whiskey raced beside him, her 6 legs eating up the distance. A creature lunged from behind a rock. Whiskey killed it without breaking stride. Another appeared ahead. Danny shot it down. Carrick reached his ship's ramp. His hand touched the door controls. Whiskey slammed into him from behind. The scientist went down hard. His white coat tore. His body rolled across the rocky ground. When he looked up, a shadow maw stood over him, teeth bared, copper eyes burning with fury. No. Carrick's voice was high with terror. No, impossible. You cannot be here. My creatures would have killed you. Danny walked up slowly. Blood seeped through his bandages. Every step hurt, but he kept his weapon trained on the scientist. Your creatures tried. They failed. You do not understand. Carrick was babbling now, scrambling backward. These weapons will change everything. Whoever controls them controls the galaxy. Nobody should control them. A sound echoed across the valley. A roar. Something big was coming. Danny turned. From the breeding tanks, a shape emerged, larger than the other creatures. Much larger. Its body was covered in thick armor. Its eyes glowed with artificial rage. Carrick laughed, his fear turning to triumph. My masterpiece, designed specifically to kill shadow moths. Your pet cannot defeat it. Nothing can. The creature charged. Whiskey met it head-on. The impact shook the ground. 2 predators, natural and engineered, tore at each other with primal fury. Claws slashed. Teeth snapped. Blood flew. Danny wanted to help. but Carrick was reaching for a weapon. He tackled the scientist, fighting for the gun. They rolled across the ground, struggling that a shot went off. Danny felt burning pain in his side, but he kept fighting. His fist connected with Carrick's face once, twice, 3 times. The scientist went limp. Danny collapsed beside him, clutching his wound. Blood soaked his uniform. His vision blurred in the distance. He heard the battle continue. Whiskey's roar. The engineered creatures screech. Then a terrible silence. Heavy footsteps approached. Danny looked up, expecting death. Whiskey stood over him. She was wounded badly. Deep gashes covered her body. One of her legs dragged, but her copper eyes were alive. She had won. "Good girl," Danny whispered. She lay down beside him, pressing her wounded body against his, protecting him even now, even at the end of her strength. The rest of the team arrived minutes later. They found the human and the shadow maw lying together in the shadow of the ship. Both were still breathing. Both refused to let go of each other. 3 weeks in the medical bay felt like 3 years. Danny drifted in and out of consciousness for the first few days. The plasma wound in his side had damaged organs and burned through muscle. Doctors told him later that he should have died. Only his stubbornness had kept him alive. When he finally woke up properly, his first word was her name. Whiskey. A nurse, a young Sindari with gentle eyes, smiled at him. "She is alive." The veterinary team worked on her for 12 hours. She lost a lot of blood, but Shadow Maws heal fast. "Where is she?" "Recovery Bay 7. She has been trying to get out since she woke up." They had to sedate her twice. Danny tried to sit up. Pain exploded through his body. He did not care. "Take me to her." "Sir, you cannot walk." "Your wounds." "Then bring her to me." The nurse hesitated. Then she nodded and left. 10 minutes later, the door opened. Whiskey limped through, her body wrapped in medical patches, her copper eyes searching. When she saw Danny, she made a sound he had never heard before. A cry of relief, of joy. She crossed the room in 3 limping steps and pressed her massive head against his chest. Danny wrapped his arms around her neck, ignoring the pain, ignoring everything except the feeling of her scales against his skin. "I thought I lost you," he whispered. "I thought I lost you out there." Whiskey rumbled. Her body shook slightly. If Shadow Maws could cry, Danny believed she would be crying now. They stayed like that for a long time. Recovery took weeks. Danny learned to walk again. Whiskey's wounds closed and faded to pale scars across her dark scales. They rehabilitated together, taking slow walks through the medical facilities gardens, building their strength. Word of their mission had spread across the coalition. The rogue scientist Carrick was imprisoned. His research was destroyed. The engineered creatures on Mirren were being hunted down and eliminated. But more importantly, people were talking about the human and his shadow maw. Admiral Torvin visited on the day Danny was cleared for discharge. The elderly Peloran stood in the garden, watching Danny and Whiskey walk between the flowering trees. "You have done something remarkable," Torvin said. "Not just surviving the mission, not just stopping Carrick. You have changed how people think about predators, about bonding, about what is possible." Danny stopped walking. Whiskey settled beside him, her shoulder against his leg. "I just treated her like she deserved to be treated. That is all. That is everything." Torvin smiled. "The Coalition has created a new position. Handler First Class. The first role of its kind in our military. You will train others to do what you have done. To form bonds with creatures we once thought were only capable of killing. Others want to try. Dozens. Humans mostly, but some other species as well." Torvin looked at Whiskey. "You have shown them that understanding can conquer fear. That patience can achieve what violence never could." Danny scratched behind Whiskey's ears. She leaned into his touch, rumbling contentedly. "I will do it, but I have one condition." "Name it." "Whiskey stays with me. Always. She is not a tool to be assigned elsewhere. She is my partner." Torvin nodded slowly. "I would expect nothing less. The bond you share is not something that can be replicated or transferred. It belongs to you both." 1 month later, Danny stood on the academy grounds where everything had begun. He wore a new uniform now, with markings that indicated his unique position. Beside him, Whiskey sat calmly, her copper eyes watching the crowd of cadets gather before them. They did not run anymore. They did not scream or push each other to get away. They stared with wonder and curiosity and hope that the young cadet, barely 18, raised her hand. She was human, Danny noticed. From one of the colony worlds. Reeves, can I ask a question? Go ahead. How did you do it? How did you turn the galaxy's deadliest predator into? She searched for the right word. Into that, Danny looked at Whiskey. She looked back at him. After everything they had been through, they understood each other without words. Without gestures. They simply knew that he knelt beside her. His hand found the spot behind her ears that she loved. She closed her eyes and pressed against him, that familiar rumble vibrating through her body. She was never a monster, Danny said. She was never mindless or evil or impossible to reach. She was just alone, afraid, waiting for someone who would see her for what she really was. And what is that? Danny smiled. A friend, a partner, a protector. He stood, his hand resting on Whiskey's head. Every creature in this galaxy has the capacity for connection, even the ones we fear most. We just have to be brave enough to try, patient enough to wait, and kind enough to understand. The cadet stared at Whiskey. The Shadow Maw opened her copper eyes and stared back. For a moment, something passed between them. Recognition. Possibility. Can I? The cadet hesitated. Can I touch her? Danny looked at Whiskey. She rumbled softly. Permission. Come forward. Slowly. Let her see your hands. The cadet approached. Her hands trembled, but she did not run. She held her palm out, just as Danny had taught in the briefing. Whiskey leaned forward and pressed her snout against the cadet's hand. The crowd gasped, then cheered. Danny watched with pride swelling in his chest. This was just the beginning. Across Coalition space, other creatures waited. Predators feared and hated and locked away. Beings that had known only cages and shock collars and weapons pointed at their heads. Soon, they would know something different. They would know humans. They would know patience and trust and the strange, powerful magic of a bond that crossed every boundary nature had created. The galaxy had called Whiskey a monster. Danny had called her family. And now, together, they would change everything. The end.